This is CBC Vancouver News.
BC's former child and youth watchdog is no longer at UBC.
It's spreading quite fast in certain parts of the world.
A new COVID subvariant is detected in BC.
Kind of tired now. COVID's here to stay.
How British Columbians feel almost 3 years into the pandemic.
It literally took him 8 seconds to walk in, lift up the sculpture, and walk right out.
And police nab a suspect in a big Vancouver art theft. They say he did it the day before, too. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC's former child and youth advocate, Mary Ellen Turpella-Fond, is no longer employed at UBC. The university says as of mid-December, she's no longer a professor at the Peter A. Allard School of Law. When asked why, a spokesperson says they can't say because of privacy law. Last fall, Turpella-Fond was the subject of a CBC investigation into her claims of Indigenous ancestry. For decades, she had said she was a Treaty Indian of Cree ancestry, but CBC found no evidence of that. All documentation indicated she was of European descent. CBC also reported that she had made inaccurate public claims about her academic accomplishments from 2018 until 2022. Mid-2022, Turpella-Fond served as the director of UBC's Indian Residential School History and Dialogue Centre. She left that role in June, but remained a professor at UBC School of Law. In a statement issued to the Globe and Mail in mid-October, the day CBC's story broke, UBC offered public support for her, praising Turpella-Fond's work as the director of the IRS HTC, acknowledging her deep connections with Indigenous peoples across Canada. The university added she was not hired because of her Indigenous ancestry claims. In the wake of the story, a group called the Indigenous Women's Collective said, quote, "We are deeply troubled that First Nations professionals, politicians, and university leaders have been too swift to publicly defend an individual claiming to hold Treaty Indian status and indigeneity when, in fact, there is no verifiable evidence to support that claim." The group called on 11 Canadian universities to revoke the honorary doctorates they had given her. All those institutions say they're taking the request seriously and are examining the matter. CBC asked Turpella-Fond for comment, but she had not replied by the time of publication. A new year and a new form of COVID to watch out for now. BC health officials say a likely more transmissible Omicron subvariant has spread into our province from the U.S. But as Zara Premji explains, its emergence comes as many people here find themselves in the grip of COVID fatigue.
This is our life now. COVID's here to stay.
And with that, another subvariant has made its crash landing in BC.
Kind of tired now. Just stop now.
It's called XBB 1.5, or nicknamed the Kraken.
One of the things that has been concerning about it and why it's come to people's attention is because it's spreading quite fast in certain parts of the world.
As of December 31st, the new subvariant accounts for more than 40% of new cases in the U.S. That's according to the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention. And that's up from 0.6% just over a month before. And while BC's top doctor says hospitals are prepared for what might come, some British Columbians say they're tired of talking about variants.
It's almost like it's COVID fatigue. You're starting to get used to it, which is a shame, but it's true.
Dr. Henry says it's dangerous to see this as just another COVID warning and dismiss it, though.
Viruses change, and this virus has changed and changed quite rapidly, sometimes quite dramatically.
But if the province wants British Columbians to be alert, this advice from a local physician.
I think we need to double down on what we know about how humans receive information, as opposed to coming up with the next greatest message.
She says while there continues to be a struggle to keep the messaging top of mind, it's important to remember.
Just like wearing seatbelts in our car, flossing our teeth, we need to be prepared to protect ourselves.
Dr. Henry says while it's not causing severe illness or spiking hospital rates as of now, the new subvariant is a stark reminder.
And if you haven't got that booster dose, it's not too late. This is a reminder that this virus is still out there trying to make us sick, and those booster doses make a difference too.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Beijing has now condemned new COVID testing rules imposed on travelers from China by the Canadian government. China says the new requirements in effect at several airports, including YVR, are unreasonable, and that country is threatening to take countermeasures. Starting Thursday, air travelers 2 years and older who arrive in Canada from China, Hong Kong, or Macau will have to provide proof of a negative COVID-19 test taken before departure. Here in Vancouver, the wastewater from planes arriving from China will also be tested for the virus. The World Health Organization is asking Beijing to disclose up-to-date information on COVID hospitalizations and deaths. Well, first it was kids. Now adults are seeing a shortage of flu medication. Pharmacies across BC say they are short of Advil, cold and flu meds. Officials say the lack of supply is due to an increase in demand across the country. While they work to restock the shelves, retailers are asking you not to overbuy so that everyone can get what they need when they need it. Canadian Blood Services, meanwhile, is asking you to donate a pint, and soon after the winter weather blast caused huge cancellations. Many donors were unable to get to their appointments because of the icy roads and closed bridges on the Lower Mainland. There are more than 6,200 open appointments to donate blood in BC alone. The agency is also reporting its lowest donor base in the last 10 years. Back to travel now. More than 1,500 checked bags are still sitting at YVR waiting for people to claim them. The airport says the reunification process will take more time. They're asking people to make their claim with their airline, either online or at the airport. Claims must be submitted within 21 days for delayed luggage and 7 days for damaged bags. After that 21 days is up, the baggage is considered lost and the airlines can be held responsible. YVR has set up a temporary area that can store about 2,500 bags.
We're hearing stories of people being reunited within, 2 minutes of talking to one of our staff members. It's just a matter of working through all the bags that are here and then helping passengers find them here at the airport. So certainly have your ticket with you, certainly have that little tag that you get when you check your bag, and come and speak to someone here at the airport to find out more.
The airport's baggage customer support team is at the information counter in domestic arrivals, and for international arrivals, it's on level 1. A happy update for you now on the missing hockey stick that 2 boys lost during the airport chaos over the holidays.
We heard from our parents, I think 2 days ago, that the stick was around Abbotsford, but it hadn't actually been with us or anything. And then I think it may have been yesterday or 2 days ago that we actually heard that our grandparents had gone there and picked up the stick, and the stick was in our hands basically.
Flair Airlines contacted the family to let them know the stick was found and was being sent to Abbotsford. Their grandparents went to go pick it up, and it will be returned to the boys later this week. That's good news. If you own a property in BC, get ready for your annual checkup. Assessments are showing a 12% rise in home values on average, but the new numbers come with a caution. As Mira Baines reports, experts are actually predicting a drop because of what's happening in the market right now.
While some properties like Lululemon founder Chip Wilson's waterfront Kitsilano home are up $1 million from last year's assessment, values in the Lower Mainland have on average increased anywhere from 5 to 20%.
The Fraser Valley is where you see some of the bigger increases for the Lower Mainland.
The assessments show the market value of a property as of July 1st, 2022. So the higher values across the board reflect market activity during the pandemic recovery.
You're seeing the tail end of all that movement from last year. So, we know that the market, it peaked around March or April of last year.
This is a snapshot of assessments as of July 2022 for single-family homes in the Lower Mainland. In Vancouver, assessed values were up 7%, Surrey up 13%, and the township of Langley up 15%. For condos and townhomes in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver strata properties were up 6% overall, Surrey up 16%, and Abbotsford up 21%. But Morale says the market has been falling since July.
When we're starting to look at what our 2024 assessment roll looks like, it's probably going to be mostly negatives across the board. Negative to what degree, that's yet to be seen, but it'll probably be, it'll be all red.
This Abbotsford-based realtor is recommending people get a second opinion because assessed value doesn't necessarily reflect market value. For example, renovations aren't always taken into account.
I do think it hurts because the problem is when people see a number, and then they don't get that number, they feel like they lost that money, although it was never really there. And this is something we struggle with as well, is it's hard because, again, it's really hard to get off that when you've seen a number and that's something that you want.
January 31st is the deadline to appeal assessed value. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The new cooling off period intended to protect home buyers took effect today in BC. It's expected to shield people from being pressured into high-risk sales. Home buyers will have 3 days after signing a contract to back out. A rescission fee of 0.25% of the purchase price is added on any cancellation. That works out to about $2,500 for a $1 million home purchase. As some parents continue to deal with long wait lists for expensive daycares, hundreds of $10 a day spaces will open in BC this month. More than 1,300 new spots will be spread out across dozens of childcare centres. It's part of the Childcare BC program, with nearly 12,000 affordable spaces open in total. The province says the program saves the average family $800 per child a month for full-time care. It's bold, it's brash, and Vancouver police say it's happened twice. But they've managed to arrest a suspect after someone stole tens of thousands of dollars worth of art from the same gallery. And as Michelle Gassoub reports, he has a long list of previous offenses.
Vancouver Fine Art Gallery in South Granville devastated and stunned when this $7,000 sculpture was stolen on Saturday.
I've seen him on the camera. I went shooting straight after him. By that time, it literally took him 8 seconds to walk in, lift up the sculpture, and walk right out.
Even more shocking when they realized the same thief had stolen a $30,000 sculpture just the day before.
Came in the next morning, still didn't notice it. And then at 12 o'clock, around 12:01, 12:03, he walked in again and decided two is better than one.
Both incidents captured in security footage. In the first, the man lingers outside and inside the store, sizing up the weight and heft of the gold statue before grabbing it and taking off. In the second, there was no hesitation. The entire theft takes place in a matter of seconds. The gallery phoned 911 and police recognized the suspect as 50-year-old Francis Boyven and headed to his East Vancouver home.
When we got there, he wasn't home, but we waited for him, and shortly within the hour, he showed up, still carrying the stolen sculpture that had just been stolen an hour earlier. We were able to arrest him.
A search warrant revealed the second stolen sculpture in Boyven's home. He was well known to police, with 115 previous convictions to his name and crimes dating back to the 90s.
Anytime we're able to get somebody like this, catch them in the act, recover the property, obtain criminal charges on somebody, it's a good thing.
Boyven has now been charged with 2 counts of theft over $5,000. Dror says he'll be relieved to have the pieces back, but was stunned to learn of Boyven's long criminal history.
I found out that he's got 100-some charges against him, that I'm amazed that our system has not been able to put him away forever and ever and ever and throw the book at him.
He says he's now considering more security measures for the gallery, but doesn't want to discourage people from coming in.
Which prevents people from coming in when they see a door locked, they need to buzz. It's not the freedom that we're used to.
A story with a happy ending and 2 works by a local artist soon to be back on display. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver fire crews knocked down a small blaze at the Sandbar restaurant on Granville Island earlier today. And with that came a nice treat.
When I saw the fire department here, they worked quickly, they minimized the damage. And we have a policy here in the Creek House that we thank people. And I thought 3 dozen donuts would be lovely for them to go back to have a coffee and sit down and relax a little bit after coming down here.
McCann says the fire started in one of the pizza ovens because of creosote buildup. The restaurant was still open as firefighters were able to get the blaze out quickly. And after the work was done, time for a donut. Why not? Vancouver police, meanwhile, say a local litter bug got a little more than they bargained for. In a tweet, the VPD traffic section says a passenger was seen littering from what appears to be a Mercedes-Benz G63. Officers pulled them over near Howe and Nelson Street downtown, only to find the driver impaired and too many passengers in the vehicle. The driver got a prohibition, tickets were issued, and that car impounded. A massive freighter ship is drawing crowds after being docked in Victoria Harbour because of a malfunctioning rudder. Take a look. GSL Eleni, a Liberian vessel, was en route to North Carolina but faced mechanical issues and wasn't able to maneuver. So it made an emergency stop off Vancouver Island on Sunday, where 6 tugboats escorted the 300-meter-long ship into harbour.
Well, I saw it come in on the 1st and, wanted to see if they could really fix it here. I thought they'd take it to a dry dock.
It's gigantic. It's hard. And well, you see only part of it too, so you get lost on a boat like this, I guess.
The vessel is now docked at Ogden Point and will stay there until it is repaired. Big boat.
Lines it again. Bernard clocks right in.
The game and the goal that sent Canada to the World Junior Hockey Championship semifinals, and the North Shore player who led his team to victory. More after the break. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream this evening. Last year, we sent our reporters to cover stories all over this massive province. John Paulo Mendoza used a drone to elevate some of the stories he covered. Here's some of his best shots. Canada is off to the semifinals of the World Junior Hockey Championship tomorrow after a dramatic 4-3 overtime win against Slovakia yesterday. As Kate McKenna reports, North Vancouver's own Connor Bedard played the pivotal role.
Slides it again. Bedard talks right in.
It was a fairy tale ending for a historic night. 17-year-old Connor Bedard smashed multiple records and scored the winning goal in overtime.
I've gone to the games and I've just seen him and he's been unreal. And we just think he's the next coming of Jesus.
I think he's very slick and he's also very humble about it. I think he really appreciates all the support.
In this game against Slovakia, he broke multiple records, including one held by Hall of Famer Eric Lindros.
Breaking in front. They score! Lindros!
For 30 years, Lindros has held the record of all-time Canadian points at the World Juniors. Now, that honor belongs to Bedard. Lindros says he's happy to pass the torch. In a tweet before the game, he wrote, "Happy New Year. Don't just break the record, Connor Bedard. Smash it. Win the tournament. Go Canada." Bedard broke 2 other records, too. He's now the all-time goal leader, and he now holds the record for most points scored in a single tournament.
He's doing things at 17 that these players did at older ages. They were doing it at 18. So it's phenomenal from that perspective, just to kind of watch history in the making.
The budding superstar is projected to be the first pick in next year's NHL draft. Vancouver-born, he plays for the Regina Pats. And though he's only getting started, he's got a lot of fans.
He's generational. He's got pretty much everything you're looking for in a superstar.
Lucky, I guess, that it's happening at the same time as I'm being able to watch, and I'll remember it for a long time.
And Connor Bedard could break more records in this tournament yet. Today, Team Canada players are on the ice practicing for tomorrow's game against Team USA. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Halifax.
There's a live shot of Cambie Street in City Hall. Heads up if you didn't hear the 9 o'clock gun earlier tonight. The Vancouver Park Board says it will be silent this week as they wait for more black powder. And as we await Johanna's BC-wide weather forecast, which is coming up next.
Two months ago on Saturday Report, we told you about an unusual referendum in Victoria, a referendum on sewage. In a non-binding vote, Victoria residents voted not to treat their sewage, and that means the city's raw, untreated waste is still being dumped directly into the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The practice angers some people in nearby Washington state, and now they're fighting back, hitting Victoria right in the pocketbook. Here's our environment specialist, Eve Savory.
The salmon, the prawns, the scallops sizzling on the grill are local. Just one of the reasons tourism is worth $750 million to Victoria. It's a value that makes the region vulnerable to boycott.
The non-binding referendum has produced a media backlash. There's just no question about that, targeting Victoria's tourism industry.
Victoria does not treat its sewage. Large particles are screened out and the rest piped out to the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Scientists say that there, cold waters and fast currents act as a natural treatment plant. Last November, a referendum asked residents, would they shell out for sewage treatment? They said no.
Very dumb, very stupid, real stupid.
Stupid because Victoria shares the waters of the strait with Washington state. That's also where lots of Victoria's tourists come from. And an informal boycott is gathering momentum. 3 major conventions from the state have canceled.
Well, the goal really is to have some kind of economic pressure against Victoria. We feel that they made an economic decision, so we're making an economic response to them.
A lot of the business that's been lost has been convention business and that sort of thing. So really we're looking at, I think you could look at quite a bit of a drop in occupancies.
It's not just hotels. 70% of the Irish Linen Shop's business comes from tourists.
But in the wintertime is when most of the conventions come over due to our mild weather, and it's greatly affected business.
So far, it's said Victoria has only lost about $500,000 worth of business. But the referendum was only a couple of months ago, and word of the boycott has just begun to spread. At this meeting this week, Victoria Region promised secondary treatment within 25 years.
My response on behalf of our organization would be, we'll see you in 25 years.
But the region says it will fight the boycott. It says if they don't, it could spread to the whole province and even harm the rest of Canada. Eve Savory, CBC News, Victoria.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Enjoy groundbreaking contemporary works of theatre, dance, music, and multimedia at the annual Push International Performing Arts Festival, January 19th to February 5th. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The snow may have melted here in Metro Vancouver, but take a look at Big White Ski Resort near Kelowna. That is the Falcon chairlift encased in ice. It's going to take up to 3 days to completely de-ice that lift. But before you try to get a refund, Big White says the Falcon chairlift is the only one closed right now, and it hasn't been running since November anyway because of a lack of snow under the unload area.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. Happy New Year, Joe. Nice to see you.
Happy New Year to you too, Dan. We made it.
Yes. And now we're going to go get a little break before we go back to the very familiar. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So far, 2023 doesn't look too different than where we left off, but we do get some sunshine tomorrow. We can sort of use that after a showery start. Let me show you the next 3 days laid out ahead of us in the satellite, starting with the system bringing the showers overnight tonight and maybe lingering through the early morning hours. You can see that break, though, in the satellite as you look out towards the Pacific, where I've put on Wednesday. That's the between systems that we get tomorrow before that next low pressure system sneaking in from the southwest brings us rain Thursday and Friday. So here's how things will time out through the overnight. Clearing skies. We might get one more shot early morning hours towards the North Shore Mountains, but generally a clearing afternoon. We don't get much of a break. Look at that. Wednesday overnight into Thursday morning, and the next system moves in. So by tomorrow evening, this time tomorrow night, we'll be looking at overcast skies again. This one to bring some snow to the interior. You can see that purple all the way through to the Kootenays and then up the coastal mountains as well. And we sort of get a second surge of that moisture for Friday. Friday looking much wetter for the south coast and windier as well. I'm going to have to keep my eye on those winds. We may see some wind warnings issued across the south coast with Friday's system. Until then, just taking you through that accumulated rainfall total after we get our break tomorrow, Thursday through Friday. Parts of the island you could see could be getting close to 100 millimeters, 60 to 80 millimeters in through Metro Vancouver. So showers, but ramping up to that rain on Friday. Look for that sunshine, though, across the interior tomorrow. Prince George -4. Lots of sunshine up towards the northeast as well. And here's how things shake out after our break day tomorrow. It gets warm and wet, double digits for Thursday. That's wet and windy for Friday. And Dan, some uncertainty for the weekend, but I'm thinking we're going to get a bit of everything at this point.
Way to lay down a lot of money on that one.
Yeah, just hedging my bets.
Very good. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Let's end with animals, because why not? A Kamloops pilot got a rare surprise recently. He noticed a small predator lurking around his property.
Are you after my mice?
Maybe. At first he thought it was a domestic feline, but soon realized he was tailing a bobcat, which toured his property before leaving through a small gap in the fence, just as quietly as he came. Yeah, keep your distance. That's your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Good night.